Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Okay, we have started this show. Man, I hit the button and I just get all excited because this is about to go down. I can't wait to introduce you to my guest today. He is an absolute wizard. He is someone to learn from. Well, who is he, Casey? He's a seasoned executive, a speaker, a growth leader, 25 plus years leading teams, marketing teams, customer success teams in SaaS and B2B. He's here to just give us some knowledge. He's been involved with helping companies like ExactTarget grow, and anyone in the Pardot circles that I'm a part of knows all about the ExactTarget rise, and as well as Salesforce and their acquisition of ExactTarget. So he is well connected. He's a guy to learn from. I can't wait to pick his brain. He's also the host of the Closing Time podcast, CMO at Insightly CRM. Chip House, welcome to the show, sir.
Casey, I love that intro. Thank you so much. You clearly did your research, which is awesome.
Well, thank you, and a shout out to Bjorn and the production team who just helped me figure things out. But yeah, man, I almost lost myself in the introduction because there's so much to say. You're a busy guy.
I'm also an old guy. Yeah, that's how you do all that stuff, is you just be old. So
you don't look it. So whatever secret serum you're drinking, keep drinking it.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I think my wife and daughter beg to differ. They think I look old as dirt.
Well, you can't listen to those naysayers now, can you? Yeah. All right, now I need to pass you this thing over here. It's heavy, but clearly you work out for an old guy. Okay.
Oh, right. That's sweet.
Good. Grab Thor's hammer.
Here.
Take Thor's hammer.
I got it.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a one-handed, backhanded grab, ladies and gentlemen. That is a man of strength. Chip, take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really interesting because I think a lot of people, a lot of marketers even, especially those that are controlled by an organization in SaaS where the CFO or the finance people try to lean in. I think the myth is that brand doesn't matter in B2B, right? And I think it matters more than ever right now. And the reason I say that is because there's never been more competition for your product and more software that does something, if not the same, sort of adjacent to what you do. And so, the noise is out there and there's plenty of quote unquote good enough solutions. And so, as a brand, I really truly feel that brand is back for B2B because you're trying to differentiate yourself in your potential buyers' minds such that you become, when they may not be in market right now, but when they go to market for your specific product, you're going to want them to think of your brand when they're ready to come to market. And the data really shows that if you're not one of those, 5 to 8 brands that they're going to research and continue to focus on, you're just going to you have a very low chance of winning the deal. Whereas the finance team, the CFOs in the room, want to have you focus all of your spend on channels that are highly trackable, such as only Google search, because it's very, very highly trackable, for example, right? And a lot of companies, I'd really overspend there without focusing much on the quality that they're getting down the funnel. But if you only focus on the portion of companies that are actually actively in market because it's measurable, you're going to miss the future and the future growth and establishing your brand with the 90 to 95% that are not in market for your solution currently.
Man, so much to unpack there. I know even for Google, I've clicked on some ads and I couldn't tell you the brand whatsoever, weeks, months, years. I have no idea. There's got to be something else here. It's interesting that some people are neglecting this at their own peril. where does this come from? Why are we e- why is this rumor so apparent in the B2B world that brand, it's just this other stuff. You don't need it. Stick to the trackable. Where does it come from?
Yeah, I think it comes from the bad habits definitely that we picked up in growth at all costs in the B2B SaaS world, right? I mean, I think VCs, private equity companies, they're trying to have you become a unicorn, right? And
Mm,
so they are many times looking at only metrics and only the trackable, right? And so since you can track something, and definitely this has evolved over the past 20 years that I've been doing this, right? It certainly was amazing when I first saw the ability to track opens and clicks on an email some 20 years ago,
right.
and being able to have that engagement. Because I came from the cataloging space. I know we'll talk about that later,
Yeah.
but just the instant gratification of digital was just amazing, right? And because you could track it, I think that the finance people thought that everything you do should be trackable, and that led to a lot of bad habits, frankly. And I think marketers moved away from some of the core principles that got them to where they are, which is thinking about storytelling, brand building, awareness, right? Even like untrackable uh, advertisements, right? Is something that I think most CMOs are afraid to do because they have to go back and justify it to their board that, hey, I spent this relatively untrackable portion of my budget, and trust me, it's coming around. Those people are visiting the website, but I just can't specifically track them back to that ad that they saw.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, it's fascinating too. We added a to our demo request form, how did you hear about us? And it's just so ripe with amazing data. And I just learned recently, Casey, that about I think it was like 4% of the people that took a demo from us in the past year said that they found us because of an AI recommendation. So they found us somehow on Chat GPT or some other,
Whoa.
which I thought was so cool. And then about 20% say they found us because of word of mouth, right? Or a referral or word of mouth, or they heard about it from their professor or their boss or their old coworker, I mean, and so that's all the power of brand, right? Is the word of mouth.
100%. Yeah, I was as you were talking, the question came to mind, especially as you mentioned how some people can get obsessed over our VC friends can get obsessed over creating unicorns. Is can you, chicken and the egg, can you create a unicorn without a brand? I don't know if I'd want to. That sounds really hard, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating too because you mentioned exact target, you're right. And I think, when we started out, we were one of, I don't know, maybe 40 email service providers, even back then, in the
Yeah.
2000, 2001. There were still plenty. And we were a very SaaS first, software first approach, whereas like Cheetah Mail and Epsilon, some of the others, like brands that are like long forgotten now, were
Right.
very sort of service first. But we leaned into events hard. I can't say we leaned into quote unquote brand, but uh, events hard and customer events. And so our customers would come and they'd learn about optimizing email, which was still a super new channel then. And and they would experience the other marketers and the other businesses almost more than us, frankly. It was certainly meeting an exact target employee was cool, but being able to experience and learn from other people being successful on the platform was really, really engaging. And it became, we kind of built our brand in that way in a very sort of ground up way.
Hmm. I feel like I could feel that. So I was a, Pardot partner through the acquisition, and my first reaction was actually like, "Oh, no." And then I, like, tweeted that, and then Pardot reached out like, "No, actually, it's a really cool thing. Let me explain it to you," right? And I was like, "Oh, okay, this could be cool." And I had a chance to speak, I think that at the Connections event right after the acquisition, and what a cool event.
Yeah, you and I probably met in Indianapolis.
We probably did. That was the year that you took over the Colt Stadium, and it was like Imagine Dragons that year. But what a great event. Connection was such a great event. I can see how leading with those kind of, I mean, you created a real community around the product too. And so, yeah, that brand sort of got magnified by every single person that was there. It was like a cool, I've been to events, but then there's events and then there's ones you remember.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. It's funny, right? Because it's, as the years wear on, that story becomes more and more irrelevant in some ways, especially to my 25-year-old coworkers,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know, who were in junior high when all that took place. But nonetheless, it's what us old guys do. We tell stories. So.
Yeah, how many times, like, do you have, like, football players who were like, "Oh, I watched Tom Brady play blah, blah, blah," and now they're on the team playing with him, like, it just all those kinda things are crazy to go through.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah, like my son. I mean, I'm in Minneapolis, right? And so my son is a Vikings fan, and it's like I guess I'm still a Vikings fan, but my heart was broken in the '70s, basically. After our fifth Super Bowl loss.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
but I think about like Fran Tarkenton back in that day, and when I cite like these old players like Fran Tarkenton and Ahmad Rashad and truck foreman and things like that, my son's eyes kind of glaze over, but he's like, what about Justin Jefferson and you know,
All the new ones.
yeah, the new ones. So
Okay, so there's so much to it, and with Connections, it was quite the experience in it. A great glimpse of brand there. I'd love to bring it back to, like, what would you say are the fundamentals? What is the fundamentals or foundation of brand when you think about coming into a SaaS company and then assessing it and then really trying to build that thing?
yeah, and so I think the first thing you have to do is instill measurement, right?
Okay.
And for every channel, kind of top to bottom, like your spend, assuming you're doing MQLs, opties, cost per lead, cost per opti, and really just to understand your funnel much better. And so that was one of the first things that I did when I came in. Um, you know, what size of companies are we converting and why are we converting them? And if we want to go up market, which we have, by the way, since I've been there, I joined about the same time as our new head of sales or CSO. We've
Oh,
roughly doubled our average contract value in the last 2.5 years, right?
geez.
And that's primarily because of better targeting, focusing in an up market, sort of still a mid market segment, um, but and then being able to sell the platform beyond just CRM, also selling marketing automation or integration platform or a service platform to customers. So but in terms of what goes into branding, I think it's telling that story, and being able to focus it as much as possible on the audience you're trying to reach. And I think I wake up, once a month with, God, I'd be cool to try some radio ads or whatever, or it'd be cool to,
Yeah.
try something that seems unusual now. Um, and I think in the age of efficient growth, I think that most often I've walked by some of those things simply because I want to more tightly target my ICP, even if I'm doing high funnel branding kind of activities where I'm trying to, encourage the prospects that I number one exist. So they need to know me, then they need to like and trust me before they will ever try or buy the product. And so I'm trying to instill the fact that we get their problem, number one, and we know how to solve it, number two.
So the know, like, and trust me can get established, and then it shifts to problems? problem solving after that? Is that
Well, I
accurate?
think that as part of them liking you and trusting you, they have to believe that you understand them, right? That you understand the problems that they're up against. Wait, maybe it's lead generation, maybe it's pipeline management, maybe it's workflow automation, or just maybe as simple as managing customer data, right? I mean, so we still like 30% of the businesses that come to Insightly were managing on spreadsheets before they came to
Mm,
us, and
yeah.
another 20%, might come from a high end provider like a Salesforce or a HubSpot potentially, and another 20% might come from a low end provider, maybe like a Zoho or a verticalized solution.
Yeah. Okay.
Make sense?
I like, I mean, it's a good example of it. I'm trying to think of how the flow works because I feel like I've done this too. I feel like in conversation with people, we've done a good job building rapport. We trust each other, but then where I've dropped the ball is in um, associating what we do with their problem. You know, so it's almost been like do this what for fun or do this and it's almost like I'm allowing them to just buy this program when I need to connect it to a problem, and then I wonder, well, afterward, I don't have much urgency on their part because they're not really associated with solving a problem. I don't know if does that make any sense.
No, it does. I mean, it's, clearly as the CMO slash evangelist of a CRM company, I
Yeah.
mean, what I talk about is only sort of tangential to the problem. The best way to highlight the problems I solve is through the lens of customer stories and things like that. So, I mean,
Uh,
nobody's going to go buy Insightly because of me necessarily. They might hear about it because of me, but they're not going to buy it because of me. Whereas if I'm the owner of an agency, or I'm somebody like Chris Walker, right, who owns Refined Labs, I mean, you're going to learn about him and his capabilities of his firm because of what he talks about.
got it. So, and that would be more professional services on that side versus say
Yeah,
a SaaS product. Interesting. The
exactly.
differentiation between that. I think we often talk B2C and B2B, but not necessarily the difference between selling professional services versus um, SaaS.
Yeah, it's a big difference, and I think that's why. I mean, customer proof, I think, is number one. And when I was just on, have you spent any time on Spark Toro, Casey?
No.
Rand Fishkin's platform?
You know, it's funny. I interviewed him here, and I haven't been on Spark Toro, so clearly I need to.
Yeah, you need to check it out because the latest iteration, kind of V2, is fascinating because you can see, like, of the people that search for your brand, where are the other sites that they're searching? Where's the affinity there? And it's pretty incredible. And it just, most of it's semi-intuitive, but it's nice to see it there right on their reporting that, you know, G2, GetApp, Software Advice, Capterra. I mean, those are evidence of, somebody searching for Insightly is also doing their research of the CRM space, and
Mm.
they're really trying to understand the gamut of the different providers.
Do you see the challenge of migration? I'll set this up. A lot of times, I get hit up by another type of SaaS product where they offer benefits or payroll, and it's like the idea of shifting providers isn't just shifting the software. Like I have to move healthcare for the team. Like it's such a heavy lift, and I think maybe less so with CRM. The idea of like I have to shift all of these files over and then retrain the team. The idea of moving off of what you're at onto something new. How do you address those? Like status quo is easier. Just staying here and suffering with the less than ideal app seems like it could be better than moving to an app I know I'll love.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why 40 to 60% of the deals in many industries just go as, status quo. They just decide not to make the change. And that's definitely true for what we see. And, Dale Harrison had talked about it as being fear of effing up, FOFU, right? And I think as a buyer, I think that pain is potentially real, right? Because if you're going to lean into the new solution, you better damn well be confident in it. And so I think you're seeing individual buyers more and more involve more team members to kind of dilute their personal responsibility in making the decision. Bring in the finance person, bring in the sales, the CS, multiple departments to make those buying decisions because they don't want to be responsible for effing up. And,
Right.
but there, I think in all types of SaaS software, there is that stickiness factor, which was when you're the incumbent, you love, right? The more integrated.
You're sticky. It's stickier to leave you, but it's also harder to get them to come in too.
Exactly. Once you
Yeah.
get the integrations in place and they're integrating their ERP or their accounting system or the
Right.
back office systems and stuff like that, then you're really creating a hornet's nest for them to try to unwind, which again, as the incumbent is amazing. But as somebody that's trying to create new business, you have to really prove your platform can be easier and more cost effective.
Yeah. Man. Where do you like to learn? And I ask this because you know many things. So you might not even need to learn anymore because you know so much. But where do you like to learn, like books you're reading or podcasts you're listening to?
I love Seth Godin. I mean, I've
Man.
never stopped learning from him for whatever 30 years and I love his Akimbo podcast. I certainly listen to Dave Gerhardt's podcast. He has some good
Okay.
guests on. Um, I listen to Chris Walker, as I mentioned, the Revenue Vitals. I think is a pretty good show. Um, the Martech podcast I've listened to a couple of times. And some broader like SaaStr type podcasts as well. And then occasionally even like Radio Lab.
Mhm.
Do you listen to Radio Lab?
Oh, I love Radio Lab. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it as well. And they had a session on Google search fairly recently. And that was fascinating.
Do you have the has the listening almost completely replaced any sort of reading or books?
I hate to admit, mostly, yeah. I mean, and I was just on vacation in Hawaii, and I didn't read a book. I well, I listened to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah. Is it the time to market? Sometimes the books, they just have such a development period to them that, a year of editing later and maybe it's not nearly as fresh as it was. It almost has to be evergreen as a book, you know, first principle type thinking.
Yeah, it's funny too, Casey, and I'm blanking on the author's name who wrote about positioning, because I'm just reading her newest book on the sales pitch, April Dunford. Yeah, and so I should say I started reading that book, but I'm only about a third of the way through. But I read that not on vacation. It just seems sort of a downer. I was trying to unplug my brain a little bit more.
100%. You left April home for the vacation. But,
I did.
I've often heard that said that, if you're gonna mark that day as a free day, like a day where you're intentionally charging your batteries, folks like, Dan Sullivan will say you can't even read a business book, for it to count as a free day, otherwise it's just a regular work day, and that's what it counts as, on your schedule. So I get that idea of leaving those books and recharging elsewhere.
Yeah, it felt funny to walk down the beach in Waikiki listening to anything but music, for example.
Right, right.
So I was not going to listen to Dave Gerhardt. Sorry, Dave. That point. So yeah,
You're not allowed on our Hawaiian vacation.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
you get back on the plane, maybe you listen to him, but yeah, not with the waves crashing over the beach and everything. What was the music of choice with the waves crashing?
So we'll get into this later, but I've been a drummer since I was 10, Casey, and I still play in two bands actually. So a lot of what I was listening to was the set list from the gig I had to play this past Tuesday. So I was where I played a cover band, and so I was just making sure I knew all the music. And as a drummer, you don't have to. You just can just listen and imagine you're playing. Yeah, like that's how I practice most of the time is just making sure I know the music.
So, this is a great sidetrack, but I'm in. I'm all in. So you can hear, and your brain automatically identifies what different thing you had to hit in order
Exactly.
to make
Yeah.
that. So it's not like you needed to read music or anything. You just were like, okay, I know that during the chorus they do this and that, and then
Yeah. In fact, I'm a horrible reader. I got a gig one time at Valley Fair, which is an amusement park. This is when I was 21, for my summer job. And I almost failed the reading portion, but they gave me the gig because I could play by ear pretty well. So
yeah, it's like, can someone play this for me real quick, and then I'll be all set.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
entirely.
how I was like that for me with trumpet too. Just, if I hear it, sounds good, but if I have to, read, especially with drums, man, not, reading 16th notes, I don't know how you would possibly do it. It just seems like a pain in the butt.
It seems, like, it makes sense to me to put music on a scale, but like, I guess you have to do it with drums to communicate how to play this song,
Yeah.
but certainly some these jazz cats can play sight read stuff, and that's not me.
Yeah, no, the sight reading people, I think they're just aliens or robots or something like that. So now I am curious. So, like, Chip, who are you? Take me back in time. You said you grew up and you were a drummer at 10. You just started. Take me. What was it like growing up? Where were you at?
Yeah, so I grew up in Roseville, Minnesota, which is a suburb of St. Paul. I now live in Southwest Minneapolis, nearby one of the lakes. There's a number of city lakes here in Minneapolis. Have you been to Minneapolis, Casey?
I came for the Super Bowl a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. So it was in the winter. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cold. It
Yeah, it
was
was
cold.
cold. You were downtown. Yeah. That was a ton of fun, by the way. But yeah, you were a Steelers fan or you're
No, Patriots, Patriots.
Patriots
So
fan?
that's when the
Yeah.
Patriots were in town, and man, I'm from New Hampshire, we have cold, but you have a different kind of cold in Minnesota. Like, I actually had to buy a scarf. I was walking around the downtown, and for those listening, they converted the entire downtown streets into, like, the middle lane was skiing and ski jumping and people sledding, and
Snowmobiles and stuff.
it's
Yeah.
so it was amazing, but, like, I was walking around like, "This is cool." My neck was going, "Hey, man, I'm cold. You gotta fix me right now, or I'm gonna fall off." And I was like, "My neck? What?" I wasn't used
Yeah.
to the kinda cold where you have to, like, literally bundle things up, so,
Yeah. It
um
was it was chilly. Yeah. And so I ended up going to, stayed here in town. I went to college at St. Olaf College, which is an hour south of Minneapolis, built by the Norwegians like 120 years ago, by the way,
I feel like
So
that's what the Golden Girls talk about, St. Olaf's College.
yeah, yeah. Betty White's character went to St. Olaf in the Golden Girls. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, an econ major, but like that school is known famously for their choir and their music program. And so some of the people I play with still today, I met in college, back then. It's just a
Yeah.
strong music school. I was an econ major, right? And with a management concentration. And then I got into catalog marketing at Fingerhut Corporation. Do you remember Fingerhut?
No.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, almost as they're like a $4 billion company, um, public company, probably sent as many catalogs as J.C. Penney, and especially super popular in small town America, much like Sears was,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
we extended credit. And so if you were in a small town and you wanted to have access to electronics and Nike shoes or whatever, before Walmart existed, you could buy it from Fingerhut
Huh.
on credit. And so I was there for 9 years and spent the last 2 years in the e-commerce area, which is how I got into SaaS. So
Got
from
it.
there, I was recruited to Digital River, which was in its infancy as a startup,
Yeah.
as the first marketing guy um, there, and that was when you know, e-commerce was new, but also digital download was new because the
Yeah.
80%, 90% of software was bought at Best Buy, right? You would go to the store and buy a CD, which sounds just crazy now, but
Man, I used Digital River. I worked at a company that had digital downloads with them.
is
That's
that right?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so because we took a percentage of every transaction,
Sure.
we basically provided a lot of the marketing for our clients for free. We would try to find a hot piece of software and say, "Hey, we'll send your email for you. We'll
Mm.
run banner ads for you, because we get a cut of it." And that's how I got really, really into email marketing and banner advertising, things like that, which got me the gig as the first marketer at Exact Target, also in 2001.
Wow. You were the first marketer there?
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Again, I'm old.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you play the drums, so that probably keeps you new, right? That
Yeah,
keeps you
I think
around.
so. Yeah, a little bit.
Um, and so, one of the things you you're bringing up the modern day, you're old and you've done these different new things. Tell me about podcasts. You're hosting, co-hosting, your podcast. Does it go into the brand category or does it go in the other category? And how are you selling that internally?
Well, very recently we started adding in customer conversations as part of closing time, but the initial idea was really just the know, like, trust, and I've been doing. I guess I left Salesforce after 2 years of there in 2015,
Sure.
post acquisition, and I've been a CMO at 3 companies since. The most recent one was SharpSpring, which is a marketing automation company, and we were acquired by Constant Contact. But I had a large marketing budget there, and I spent a ton on advertising. We were highly analytical in our approach, and so I just learned that you can't spend your way to success, right? You truly have to have
Mm,
a content engine. And so I hired a phenomenal content team. And when she showed up, Val Riley, almost immediately we both said, "Hey, we want to build this amazing video show, targeted at our ICP," and we were vehemently in agreement there. But it's very much targeted at the know, like, trust, I would say, in general, right? For
got it.
go-to-market leaders, how can we get them to know our brand, like us, and trust us because we understand what they're struggling with.
And so going all the way back to beginning conversation, does that then, as you're justifying that to the board and other people, go under the brand activities, or does that have the measurable that can go under the lead gen activities, or is there a both to that?
Yeah, it's primarily the brand category.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, a lot of the people that consume those videos, I think on LinkedIn, and they might click to it and just show up on our website and consume the full podcast, right?
Yeah.
Um, then we'll retarget them from there. But, like, as it so happens with the dark funnel these days, Casey, a lot of them end up coming back and look like direct or organic traffic later as they come
Right.
back through Google.
And then they Google search it and then organic gets all the credit. But you
Exactly.
have that field saying, "How did you hear about us?" And they're like, "I listened to your pod."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And from there. Well, who is Insightly a good fit for? Who's the ICP? Who should be checking it out?
Yeah, so, like, I think I hinted at this earlier. So there's sort of three areas of the market I think that CRM occupies. There's sort of the low end of the market, right, which tends to be either verticalized CRM solutions, or more templated approach type of CRM solutions, which you can get into for frankly less than you can get into in Sightly, but you might find yourself um, limited by that lack of flexibility over time, right? And then on the high end is, something like Salesforce, which is going to be a high total cost of ownership. Heck, you're going to have an SI integrate it for you, potentially
Yep.
Deloitte help you out. You probably have to hire an admin. And we occupy the middle of the market, and companies 50 to 1,000. Well, really more like 10 to 1,000 employees, probably. We still are uh, companies with employee less than 10 employees generally use our self-serve CRM solution, right?
Sure.
Self-serve. But in terms of who we target for our direct sales efforts, I would say tech companies 10 to 1,000.
Okay.
Um, and, that want a flexible, scalable solution that is a lower total cost of ownership. In fact, most of our customers spend at least 50% less on us than they would on a solution like Salesforce.
I believe it. Salesforce is, expensive, sometimes overkill, and having been an SI in that ecosystem, and the total cost of ownership will sneak up on you for that platform, you know?
Entirely right. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think even like the data from Blue Wolf, I think when it was just one of their integrators, right, says
Yeah.
that if you're going to spend $100,000 on the Salesforce software, plan another $200,000 or $300,000, for the ongoing maintenance and upkeep.
Right. Assuming you wanna use it, but if you just wanna buy it and not use it, then you only have to spend the 100,000. That's from my experience, is that there are a lot of people that were just spending the money, um, and not using it.
Well, it's
So
it's fascinating too. Like especially in the SaaS space, you'll see a lot of companies that have unicorn aspirations, and they're like, "We're going to need Salesforce eventually." So that when they're a 10-person startup, they go drop six figures on Salesforce, which is completely stupid.
yeah, that's rough. That's overkill. Um, so in but likewise, I've also seen companies that go to the other side that you talked about, the verticalized or the templated, and then it's just too small and it can't scale with you. And it can't, it's almost like be careful what you pay for or don't pay for, It's those extremes that'll trick you. And then you're stuck and all your customer data is now in this thing that doesn't really do anything. And then you go back to not using it anymore because it can't, you can't modify it to even your funnel, you know? We don't
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
3 calls, we do 2. Well, you can't change it, it's stuck. Here's the template.
That's I love hearing the stories from our customer advisory board about, the custom fields that they built to support their business, the custom
Yeah.
integrations with their back end, or, how they're powering their production line teams, even with like a mobile version of their CRM that they're assigning projects out to, or maybe it's a solar installation, on somebody's house where they're um, engaging with the mobile CRM to finalize that project after it's been marketed and sold on the platform also. So
Do you have the field service type work? Can you pull up on your phone and Sightly, and can you, like, modify it there, or
yeah, you can pull it up on your phone and sort of manage the project. Like it's a pretty common use case for us in like some of those kinds of businesses.
Yeah,
Where there's, you're selling on the platform, you're marketing on the platform, and then you have a sales opportunity. And once it's closed, you can convert it to a project.
yeah.
And now you're basically managing that project in a pipeline format or Kanban, much like you would a selling pipeline.
It really is the dream to have it all in one spot, versus, "Great, you sold it, now ops has to kick this thing off, and they have none of the information that was gathered in discovery and all the sales meetings and calls, and now you kinda look like noobs going in, asking all the same questions all over again when, the information is there, it just needs to get shared and be in front of the next team to use it."
Yeah. And, certainly like most people buy the CRM first and then they'll add on our middleware or our marketing automation. And, so many, many customers have leveraged MailChimp, or they still do, frankly, with our CRM in the background. They still continue to use MailChimp, but over time, we're getting more and more of those customers to convert to our marketing automation, primarily because of the same database, same data model, right?
Right.
Which is super compelling.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Love this. Um, Want to ask you this final question to kind of wrap up your life with a bow. at least so far.
Sure.
Um, l it's a bit of a hypothetical question, though, so are you ready for this? Are you prepared?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. You see
I'm gonna take a drink of water first.
yes, yeah, take a drink of water. You see, I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire.
Okay.
So, next event you do in Boston area, come visit, get some lobster, get some beer, and we get to use the time machine. Okay, it's in the backyard, covered in a tarp. So we use this time machine, and there's a second seat for me, so I can join you on this adventure. We go back in time, and we meet you 4 days after graduating, and you just left, you just left college. You St. Stanislav, right? You just got that degree, and 4 days later, you get to meet yourself, that version of you. What kind of things are you going to tell yourself? What kind of advice or recommendations would you give yourself?
I would say you are gonna go work in corporate America for 5 years maximum, and then you are gonna start your own business. Because I've seen people that started businesses in their 20s. I mean, you didn't know anything when you were 23, basically, right? But you're going to figure it out. And you're going to be happy when you get older that you went into business for yourself and built your own brand and hired your own employees. And I mean, granted, I didn't do that, so I had a lot of the benefits of a more secure job that paid me a salary and a 401k and stuff like that. But
Sure.
when I think about if I had to do it all over again, that would be compelling for me to just after I had some business experience to start my own brand, hang out my own shingle, and start learning in that way.
Wow. Yeah. The idea of the opportunity and going out and starting that. Do you think you would have listened to yourself if you showed up right now?
Uh, Great question. I'm not sure I would have the confidence to do so. Right? I mean,
Sure.
I have a close friend who started an agency when he was about 25. But he had observed his dad was a consultant, for all of those years, and sort of I think observed it. Whereas my dad was a doctor, right? So
Sure.
I didn't have any role model at
Sure.
all for business, really. So
Wow. Yeah. You never know. He might have. He might have taken up on it. Would you ever consider doing that now?
I could see being a next phase potentially. Although as I pointed out, I'm kind of old, so.
Well, Insightly, y- you know, triple unicorns and IPOs and everyone's successful and you pop champagne and then it's like, do you start one? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I honestly, I would rather lean into my drumming talent as I age, if possible. I mean, Charlie Watts did it till he was what, 80 or something. So
Yeah.
why not? I mean, it's a hobby anyway. I mean, like the gig I played, earlier this week, we made like $80 or something. So,
But something about that $80 is that much more satisfying, you know?
yeah, entirely.
You
Because
had to hit something and you made $80. It's pretty cool.
when you think about that, yeah, that way, I mean, I basically, yeah. It's are you familiar, Casey, with a guy named Rick Beato? Have you heard that
Hmm.
name?
Maybe? I don't tell
So
me about it.
he's a musician. He's on YouTube and he interviews musicians. And he just was interviewing Stuart Copeland from The Police, and it was just fascinating. It was like an hour-long interview, and Stewart, great drummer, right? But he talks about just how Sting was just much more evolved than him, and he was like, I just want to beat stuff, and like half the time, he was recording these super memorable drum parts, and he didn't even know what Sting was singing about. So
Wow.
fascinating to me. Yeah.
Which camp do you fall? Where in the spectrum of beat things or philosophical music are you?
I'm more probably on the beat things side of the spectrum, but I guess I'm technically a learned musician, learned drummer anyway, but
Yeah.
I'm a poor musician, frankly. Yeah, I feel like musicians let drummers hang out with them. So
Well, someone's gotta be the party creature at the on the bus afterwards. Someone's gotta be leading the charge.
Yeah, I'm no Keith Moon or John Bonham though, but yeah,
Fair
yeah.
enough, fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
hey, where can people reach out if they wanna connect with you or learn more about Insightly? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah, for learning more about Insightly, definitely insightly.com is a great place to go. We actually have on-demand video demos there that you can watch to learn more about the platform. And then I mean, just connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. I'm not a very active X user slash Twitter user, but pretty active on LinkedIn.
Okay. Are you on X?
I am on X,
Okay.
yeah, but not actively.
Not actively. I've been trying to resurrect my use of that platform, but I found I have to refollow new people now because all the people that used it with me back in like the '05s aren't there anymore. It's other people, so it's like a I feel like the old guy on Twitter now. I'm like, "Well, where are all the people?"
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just I feel like LinkedIn has done a great job,
they have.
amassing a business audience there,
They
and
have.
I like the long form, and there's less political rants that you have to wade through, so
Agree.
which is nice.
Agree. And, Microsoft hasn't screwed it up yet. Kudos to them.
Yeah,
LinkedIn is still a good platform.
yeah, it's getting better, I think, even
Yeah.
still. Yeah,
That in Minecraft, they can put those feathers in their caps. Those are doing well.
entirely. Yeah. Well, Casey,
Oh,
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
same, man, same. Thank you so much for coming on here, Chip. Like, I just feel like exactly what I wanted to have happen. Just learning from you for the last hour or so. It's been awesome. So I really appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, your listeners will take away a nugget or two also. Yeah. If not about marketing, then maybe drumming or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, this is the hardcore marketing show. Like, come on now. But for those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes up here, front and back, then share this with someone else. Be a thought leader. One person, 9 people, 4,000 people, whatever. But tag Chip, tag myself on LinkedIn. But more importantly, put what your takeaway was, not just what you heard, but what are the things you're going to do? What are the actions you're going to take? That's thought leadership. So be a thought leader. And with that, Chip, thank you again, sir.
Thank you so much, Casey. I really had a good time.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. This has been another crazy cool episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.